saw that coming, and I'll counter your attack with me!
Ruby, now coming to Vice Schwartz.
As an English edition original.
Trial Deck Plus, Booster Pack, and Supply Set.
On sale December 17th.
Bushy Road!
Card Fight Vanguard Overdress! Power up your deck with these new cards! Journey forth with your new allies! Booster Pack Advance of Intertwined Stars! Coming soon! Bushy Road!
Card Fight Vanguard Overdress! It's your leader, Mirai! Look how cool Bob Starfra is with the new Arms card! Start Deck, Sealed Blaze Maiden, coming soon! Bushy Road!
Wow!
Now that Decklog is available, you can register your deck list for tournaments with ease. If you have not used Decklog before, no worries, we have a tutorial video. You can find both the links to Decklog and the tutorial in the description box. Now, due to the shenanigans from the last event, this time we will be introducing a new procedure into the tournament. We will be conducting spot checks by requesting a player in a room to show us that nobody is nearby to give them help, that there are no extra cards or suspicious items around. First, the players who will be checked are based on a highly scientific method employed by many entities and game designers all over the world. Hi Player 456, you have been chosen for a spot check through a fair and impartial system.
Oh, I've been selected? Okay. So first of all, this is my table, and as you can see, I'm playing Lyrical Monasterio. I love Lyrical Monasterio so much because the characters are so pretty and so cute. Okay, now I'll show you my room. So hi, this is the room that I usually play Vanguard in, and as you can see, there's no one else here but me.
Okay, good, thank you.
I'd like to show you Vanguard collection. I've been playing Vanguard ever since the first release, and I also have my showcase here. I have G-Series, V-Series, and Overdress.
Thank you
Not
for
only that, I
cooperating.
love Y Schwartz as well. I play Persona 5, and I have a lot of other collection over here, as you can see. Very nice, I know. Thank you.
Good to know we have such an enthusiastic fan. Anyway, there have not been any incidents where we found players cheating with external help. But we hope this extra layer of precaution will deter any attempts, as well as reassuring all participants. On a side note, please do not use your phone during the tournament. This has been a rule for physical tournaments all along, and it is not any different for online tournaments. Players caught using their phone during a match is considered an infraction. First infraction, you get a warning. Second infraction, you get disqualified.
We meet again.
Yes, but this time it will be a different fight.
Oh! Guard! Over, Doriga! Please don't heal, please don't heal, please don't heal!
And the championship goes to Chris!
Okay, yeah, that was a good fight. Thank you for the game.
That match was so close. Thank you so much for the game as well.
So Judge, when will this game be uploaded to the official Bushiroad YouTube channel? I want to show my friends like the epic fight I just had with Chris.
Oh yeah, I want to show my friends too.
Because one of you used a playmat with a yellow rat and a blue turtle.
Actually, it's closer to a tortoise than a turtle.
As we can't show merchandise that isn't from Bushiroad, we can't upload the match. During our last tournament, there were a number of exciting matches that we think players would love to watch. However, because unofficial merchandise were used, we couldn't upload the videos. Non-official Bushiroad merchandise are not allowed in tournaments. This includes card sleeves, playmats, and any other objects appearing in your video. Dragon Shield and Ultra Pro generic sleeves with no art are allowed. If you do not have an official Bushiroad playmat, you can buy one at our Bushiroad online store. You can find the link in the description box below. We have a lot of beautiful card sleeves and deck boxes, all of which are allowed in the tournament. And from now till December 10th, if you use my code, you'll get 5% discount, 5, for all TCG related products. Use the code BROTHER2021. That's brother, not brother. BROTER 2021. While stocks last. Okay, fine. You can also flip over your playmat and play on it.
Hi everyone! So in order to distinguish between offline and online tournaments, we have rebranded it to Bushiroad Rumble Online, BRO or BRO for short.
That's right. If this is your first time participating, we've created a video with some rules and do's and don'ts to take note of.
We've also included some links to useful videos such as how to shuffle and how to prepare for a remote fight. And the links to all these videos will be available in the description box below.
That's right. Please do take a look at the tournament page where there will be more detailed rules and information.
Alright, thank you!
Hope you guys have fun. See you there. Bye.
See you there! Bye bye! See you there, bro!
Bro.
Bro!
That's all we have for today's video, and I really hope you guys enjoyed it. During Bushiroad Springfest Online, we had a lot of players, both new and experienced veterans, come into some of their first online tournament experiences through Remote Fight, and we got to see some amazing narratives develop. Some people start new chapters in their competitive history, some people start playing competitively for the first time ever, and I can't wait to see how the stories and the narratives of these players will further develop throughout Bushiroad Rumble Online. In case you don't already know, I will actually be commentating all of the Vanguard stages for Bushiroad Rumble Online, so I can't wait to see you guys in the chat for the tournament.
This couch I got on sale, it was like very cheap and it's very good as well. So I recommend you guys to go and get it. Not only that, I have a lot of Bushiroad posters. I love Bushiroad games. Oh my god, I'm so happy.
Hello everyone, my name is Kelvin and I'm the winner of Weiss Swords on BSFO 2021 EU region, and yeah, been delighted to be here in this interview. I play mostly Vanguard and Weiss in Australia regions. I sometimes travel to New Zealand and yeah, really love to be here in BRO. So like any other big tournaments for Bushiroad games or other card games, I think the most important part is to test, and I'm probably the worst at doing that. But unfortunately, I have really good friends who will just push me and help me get the decks right and test our streaming setups. So yeah, just a lot of getting it done right before the actual event. When it's showtime, we just roll the camera. I think most of us wouldn't have like a playmat sized empty space on our desk, so we definitely need to make some adjustments on the work table. And other than that, we find out things like glare can make the games difficult. So you want to like place your cards or like your lighting in certain positions so the games will go smoothly. I guess the biggest key difference between the usual events and the online events is, you don't have that sense of going to your locals and talking to your friends. But there are other alternatives. I think you just have to be a bit more active online and, find your mates, talk to them, just have, the game's more fun with more people. So yeah, I think you really need to get into the community and be involved. Okay, so actually my first event was actually all the way back in 2012. That was WS Grand Prix in Melbourne, and that was a just new experience for me back then, and took a bit of a break and sort of came back active around 2016, 2017, and that's when my great friends Kai and Mark, we started playing a bit more seriously, and yeah, we're doing quite well since then. And I believe in the last few years we have gone to I've gone to 2 Worlds myself, but all these big events and the Worlds is just an amazing experience. I think most of us will relate card games with people that we play with all the time. You know your locals, you know what they play like, and when you go out there, it's just widely different how people can play these games that are, you know, just 50 cards in the deck box. So previously I would only go to tournaments in my local area or like within Australian region or sometimes New Zealand, never really beyond that. And it's all sort of the same, but with online tournaments you get to meet with everyone from different time zones. You know, you'll be playing at like 10 p.m. and they'll be like 2 a.m. Yeah, it's just like different time zones, a lot of different language. People call card effects differently, and yeah, it's just a lot of new experience, one player after another, and that keeps it very exciting. Yeah, it's almost like it's a mini worlds, which is hard to believe. I mean, considering this is also the first time they run an online event, I would have to say most regions run it very smoothly. And when there are times in between rounds when, you know, nothing's happening and maybe you're not too sure because there's no PA announcements, etc., I think it's the time where you just go back to your own Discord server and, you know, have a chat with your friends, talk like, you know, how your rounds go, like, or maybe if you find new friends during the tournament, that's even better. So you gotta, you know, fill those time slots with, you know, what makes the event interesting. Yeah, because it can be quite easy for you to just, you know, sit in, play one round and do nothing till the next round, but you know, you can get yourself a bit more involved, and that's where you find the fun. Okay, so it's probably like I did the craziest run during the Vanguard week because I think I joined all 9 events. Yes, I did join all 9 events. And at one point I think I was playing like card games for like 14 hours straight. So I was pretty dead. But yeah, I think definitely you do want to keep yourself hydrated, keep yourself well fed, not too much, just enough to get you going. And you know, if you finish your round early because you get super lucky or unlucky, make use of that time. You know, take your bathroom breaks, take your small meals, and that will keep your engine running. You gotta complete the BRO or BSFO gauntlet. Try to prepare as much as you can. Have a test call with one of your friends. Make sure the camera is all right, the lighting's all right. But most importantly, try to, you know, have fun, be considerate to other players and the stuff, because it can be quite challenging to run this event, if you can imagine. And most importantly, yeah, just enjoy yourself and enjoy the event, the vibes. So it's a bit odd because I actually won the Wise tournament, but main game is in Vanguard. I did get one top 8 in the NA region for V. But we also have a Vanguard channel on the WCC, or World Class Card Fighters. Yes, it's World Class Card Fighters. Well, we upload a lot of YouTube content thanks to Kai, and you might see me there every now and then. So yeah, have a look and let us know what you like in the comments.
Hello everyone, so I actually won the Springfest Online Championship, the first place, and I was using Murakumo in premium format. At the time, I didn't have a lot of practice because we didn't have local events, but I was just thinking which deck I was afraid most of, and that was Genesis Loop. And then I just thought a lot of other strategies, how should I play against it, and I decided that I need to use Fire Element Hoenn, and Murakumo was the best deck for that. And also, if I went first with Murakumo, I had a huge advantage. So that was my choices. I most likely prepared just thinking theories, strategies, and watching some YouTube channels. Yes, actually, I was in Japan for 1 year when I was studying, and I had a chance to participate like in Vangasai. It was more like on casual side, but it still was a huge and fantastic event. And actually, I participated in it twice because I also visited Japan a little bit later on my vacation, so twice in Vangasai. I didn't had any experience participating in team leagues or other big Bushiroad events that were happening in Europe. This event was the first event for me, and I was pretty lucky with it. They had like a lot of events, but I also liked that they had like exclusive products that you can only get at that time, at that event. You had to stand in a line for it for a pretty long time, but it was something special. And I also attended the bigger, a little bit bigger tournament, but not the main event, and managed to end with 5-2. So maybe there was one thing that I didn't like, but it was the prizes were a little bit low, but just everything else was fantastic. Just a lot of people, a lot of nice people. They had like corner for only girls to play in it, so it was very unique experience. Actually, the first time I played on web camera event, but that was a different tournament, I was super uncomfortable. I had to adjust playing on webcam. It is totally different experience than playing in the real life. But because it was not my first event at Spring Festival Online, that helped me a lot because I already had some experience playing on web camera before, and I had some kind of advantage not doing a lot of misplays, not being that nervous on web camera and other things. Yes, it's kind of hard because you have to watch out for your own field, and at the same time you have to watch your opponent's field. It's just doing two things at the same time. And I like it because I have a lot of time and it saves up a lot of time. It saves up a lot of traveling money. So I actually definitely like the webcam online, and I hope it actually will be alive in the future as well. I didn't eat at all. And between rounds I was panicking. I definitely was concentrated only at that time when I was playing. I believe you should just have fun and concentrate as much as you can, because concentration is all that matters in those kinds of tournament. And maybe the next time you will be the one who will be sitting in my place and someone will be taking an interview from you. So guys, have fun, and for those who know me on YouTube channel, don't be afraid, I will be back. I just currently having some issues with my physical shop opening of the card games, so, and yeah.
Hello, Julius.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Bushiroad Rumble Online 2021, the final day for White Schwartz tournament. My name is Nanda, and once again, I'm joined by Ben and Leon. And you know, guys, we've had an amazing day one, and we're about to see an amazing top 8 as well. We've all had our favorites yesterday. Are you still on the same favorites, or do you think someone else will take it? Leon, what do you think?
Well, I mean, yesterday I said Data Life would probably win it. I took a villain stance on that since probably people are a bit tired of Data Life. But we have 4 Data Lives in top 8. So I think I'm gonna stay on that horse. I'm gonna put it all there. What about you,
What
Ben?
about you?
Yeah, so the interesting to know is that even though half of the top 8 is made up of Data Live, none of them are actually playing against each other. So there is the potential for all of them to be knocked out in the quarterfinals. And as we mentioned yesterday, the meta's evolving in a way right now that it's all about standby, right? You're either playing standby like Data Live, or you're playing to beat standby like Bofuri and Ruby, as we've seen yesterday. And one of the matchups that I'm particularly interested in is Ruby versus Data Live, because Ruby's the new set. It kind of feels like it was, molded by the fires of the standby meta of the English game. And so I think Ruby has a really good chance of beating Data Live. But I'm going to show my bias a little bit here, and I'm going to go with Kaguya in the end, because when that set came out, it was pegged to be one of the best decks in English, maybe as good, if not better than Data Live. And there is one of them in the top 8, and it's piloted none other by my fellow Strictly Broken TCG member, Kun Chang. So I'm gonna put all my chips on him for today.
Yeah, and personally, I've said it as well yesterday. I would have liked to see Ruby win. I would have liked to see Bofuri win. I didn't have my hopes up, and now both of them have made it to top 8 with 2 players representing each of the sets. So I'm quite happy to see them go all the way to the end and take it all. Of course, as you said, 50% of the bracket will be Data Live. So they have a lot of, potential decks that they've tried to counter specifically with their deck building. So it should be smooth sailing in my opinion, but we'll have to see how it works out in practice.
For sure. So I'm guessing that, Nando, that means that you don't really care who wins. You just want to see Bofuri versus Ruby in the finals, right?
Exactly.
That'd be exciting to watch for sure. But yeah, like you said, we've discussed already. So let's just take a quick look at the brackets and see exactly who we have in the top 8. So here it is at the end of Swiss yesterday. Our top 8 was decided. Leon, why don't you walk us through them?
Yeah, sure. So first place we have Mr. Kun Chang piloting the Kaguya deck, like you just mentioned, playing against Albert from Indonesia, playing Data Life. We said it.
Yeah.
Then in the other game of the top bracket, we have Darcy from Australia piloting Data Life, playing against Tim from the Netherlands piloting the Bofuri deck that Nando mentioned. And in the bottom bracket, we have Kevin from Germany piloting Ruby, playing versus Mark, also from Australia, piloting Data Life as well. And then in the last matchup for the bottom bracket, we have current and, very recently, AO champion Vince piloting Data Life versus Bao from Germany piloting the 8-wind Sword Art Online list we've seen yesterday on stream.
Yeah, it's a really interesting matchup. And like I said, none of the Data Lives are against each other. There's a chance for all of them to be knocked out. Any highlights for you, Nando?
Well, just as Leo mentioned, we've seen in AO that Vince just won that tournament, and he's continuing on into EU, trying to win it all, being a multi-region champion. So that's very interesting for me to see if he actually manages. Of course, he's playing Data Life, so I can't root fully for him as I'm one of the underdogs to win. But, I want to give him a fair chance as well.
Yeah, for sure. One quick thing I want to mention looking at this bracket is that Darcy, Mark, and Vince are all part of the same team, WCC. So their lists are actually very similar. And it's only Albert W from Indonesia who's still playing Data Life, but playing a very different list. Do either of you think that this is going to make a big difference going forward? Or do you think it's just Data Life is just so good, it just doesn't really matter?
Well, when you have a team that consistently trains with each other, you come up with a deck list that works so well that you're sort of guaranteed to have it perform to an expected degree. So as a team, you decide on the deck, and I expect that when you have players of this caliber, that the deck level will be high. So there's reasons behind it. But of course, Albert, he's from Indonesia, so the locals might be different than from Australia. And whatever he made into his deck, it still worked as he made it to top 8 into EU. So of course there might be differences, but they might have considered different things as important when deck building, and they all worked. So we'll have to see which build in the end functions the best, and we'll take it all.
For sure, for sure. And what about you, Leon? Any highlights you want to pull out
Of the Albert deck or
in general of top 8?
in general? Oh, well, listen, even though I said Data Life probably gonna win it, I still want to see one of the other decks win it because they've all earned it as well, right? These decks, I just love the current meta, man. I just love that there's the big underdogs, the anti-standby decks, and then there's the big baddies, the standby decks, right? That every other deck is. And this is exactly what we see in the top 8. So personally, I think every matchup is really cool. Maybe the bottom 3 matchups actually being a bit cooler than the Kaguya versus Data Life, since Kaguya is playing standby as well. Personally, I still think the 8-win Sword Art Online match is gonna be really awesome, but also the Bofuri matchup, since we haven't seen the Bofuri versus Data Life matchup yet, and I think that's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah, that's right. We did see Bofuri on stream yesterday during Swiss, but it was against the 8-win. So these two anti-standby decks clashing against each other, and they both made the top 8, and now they both get to play out their game plan. But without spending too much longer on this, I think we can take a look at the deck list very briefly before we get into our top 8 game. I think we're going to be starting off. Oh, actually, let's take a quick look at the prizes. See what these people are playing for. Of course, Vince. We just saw Vince winning AO. So let's see what he can maybe double up on his prizes. Nando, why don't you walk us through these?
Yes, once again, each of the players will get a certificate proving their worth, proving their performance into this tournament. And then from 3rd place on, you'll be receiving a Ruby stamped promo of the Liren Double R. It looks amazing to me. And of course, from 3rd place, you get one booster of Rental Girlfriend, which will be the newest set releasing soon. And I think that's most of the prizes.
Yeah, I'm actually quite excited about the fact that we're now giving out boxes for prizes. Like, it makes people who want to get into new sets a lot easier. Especially something like Rental Girlfriend, which is quite popular as a series, as an anime series. So, I'm sure we might see one of these winners come back later in the year, maybe at Springfest, playing Rental Girlfriend.
Also worth mentioning is that the promos are really playable this time. I think in the Ruby top 8 list we have, this card is actually being run.
Yeah, it's actually a really solid card, which, promos are always nice to see, but the fact that he can actually run them in his deck should Kevin win is definitely icing on the cake.
Yeah,
definitely puts a bit more pressure on Kevin.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think now we're going to take a quick look at the deck list. Not going to spend too long because most of these players were on stream yesterday. But for those of you tuning in or those of you we're just going to quickly run through them from top to bottom in the brackets. And starting off with Mr. Kun Cheng playing Kaguya. I think we saw this before. It's a pretty much standard Kaguya list. Of course, Leon, it is max rarity, so that's nice on your eyes.
Nice bling. What can I say?
Yeah, definitely got to respect that. And again, the only real tech choice is the one copy of the 2/2 Chica, the double player refresh. But beyond that, it's what you expect out of Kaguya. I think, as we mentioned during Kun's game, is that because he's not fully committed to the standby game plan like Data Live is, he's playing a normal level 1 combo that requires a reverse. He's playing normal level 3s. He has a very strong level 0 game to push him into that level 1. Nando, do you think his tempo may be a bit favored in going into Data Live? Or, as we saw, do you think it's just going to be a case of abandon the combo and just win out on board pressure?
Now, Kaguya definitely, in my eyes, seems favored against Zal just due to the extra access of the door, but still playing that general standby game plan where you want to get out the 2/2 and then just fill the board up as much as you possibly can with big bodies. And then, of course, you have the level 3 Miyuki, the president, that just removes any threat that Data Life could present with the clock kick. So there's no way to encore it either. And then, of course, it might not be as versatile as the Kurumi finisher, but the Kaguya finisher is still pretty lethal when they get to the end phase, as we've seen yesterday, where even just one Kaguya was managing to close out the game.
Yeah, for sure. Anything else you want to say, Leon?
No, I totally agree with this. Also, I personally think that Kuhn is just a really good player. He really regularly tests his deck to its limits, so he probably knows all the ins and outs of this matchup. That is to say, his opponent probably does as well. All of these top 8 participants seem to be really, really good players. So we're gonna have to see. Maybe Albert has some specialities for this matchup.
All right. Well, speaking of Albert, let's take a look at his list. So while production gets that ready, I just want to quickly remind people that Albert is one of the few people who aren't testing with the team WCC. So his list is going to be a little bit different to the other DAO lists that we might have seen on stream so far. But again, DAO is just such a strong deck that we shouldn't really be surprised that he's winning anyway. So here we have his Daylight list. And despite what I just said, it is actually fairly similar. You see the 8 standby, you see the Kotori back row level 3, you see the Kurumi finisher. But yeah, we don't see the red 2/2 Kurumi standby target. Instead, he's just all in on 4 copies of the 2/2 Toka. How do you think that's gonna play out for him, Leon?
So personally, with the Toka, he's probably looking for a more traditional game plan of trying to minimize taking damage during the opponent's turn by constantly reversing the opponent's characters. Against Kaguya, that probably works out up until level 2, where Kaguya can choose to break board, or at least attempt to break board with their early plays. However, we have seen that the 1-0 Miyuki that gains power against level 2s is a really strong profile against the Toka. But what I want to mention is the 3-3 event that he's playing. Typically, we don't see Data Life 8 standby lists running this event because there's no color or space for it. But Albert made some space here, and it's actually a really nice event because you can give your opponent's characters minus soul, and it doesn't have to target exactly the one that is actually attacking. So you can distribute those -1 souls 3 times each to the characters how you see fit. So that's probably gonna influence the match a bit, I see.
Yeah, it's really cool because I think we discussed this very briefly yesterday in that, one of the new cards from the Data Bullet booster is the yellow Kurumi that swaps the climax from your hand with a climax from your waiting room. And he's instead of playing the yellow one for color, he's actually playing the green version, which is from the original set. And like you said, that allows him to splash this event that could make a huge difference.
Yep.
I think you're right in that it will make a big difference because the 3/2 Miyuki, as Nando likes to reference, is such a very powerful card because not only is it 14/5 that can remove your opponent's big standby targets, but it also prevents backup. So what you can do with the event is that on another lane that's being attacked, you can use the event to minus soul this 3/2 Miyuki that's come down to the board. Yeah, it's a really, really strong line. What about you, Nando? What do you think about this deck?
Yeah, definitely the event for sure, especially in a standby meta where, the climaxes don't really assign any extra soul. Being able to minus soul is just so powerful as, even with a trigger, you can completely shut down one specific lane. And then, as we said, he runs the 4 blue Tokas, which means he could be potentially playing the 1/1 we've seen today from hand, as he has enough blue for it, which is a threat for any standby deck. Also for Kaguya, when they want to play the Miyuki, when they want to play the K early play, it just gets hard removed by the 1/1 if they try to contest any of the 2/2 Tokas.
Yeah.
So it's definitely an interesting build.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really interested to see, in a way, so Albert's playing the quote unquote older version of Data Live, but it could actually just be better placed to take on Kaguya as opposed to these other anti-standby decks, right?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so that's just one of the 4 top 8 games we have. So let's move on to the next one. So we're going to be showing you Kevin Lauer. We had him on stream earlier yesterday. He was playing Ruby, really, really strong list. As we mentioned, he's playing the Initiation combo, the level 1 Ruby, instead of the Weiss level 1 combo. And that gives him, as we saw yesterday, a bit more of an edge because he has a plussing mid game in the form of the 2/1 Weiss as well. But beyond that, there's the standard tech options of the Salem, the Neapolitan, and he's also playing a very powerful standby engine, as we saw the 2/2 Ruby there with the on attack trigger check, really powerful effect. Yeah, anything else you want to bring up about this, Nando?
Yeah, no, the trial deck combos are just really solid, especially in this meta. You get to contest any 1/1 they place from Dal, from Kaguya. You get to contest their 2/2 even when you chain multiple of the level 1s. You always have the 2/1 for extra plussing with extra on-play power. So that combo, just super solid. Honestly, power creeped even. Yeah, I'd really recommend the Ruby trial deck for anyone interested in Ruby. Other than that, we've seen the Ruby level 3. Once she comes down, if you have the memory set up, she just removes any threat that the opponent could possibly play. So no standby deck is safe against that. And we've seen that, Kevin liked to run 3 of the Pyra level 1s just to, have some extra guarantee that the level 0 Pyra will be going to memory. And some players will be, trying to play around that with either hard removal or just siding it at awkward points in time, forcing him to maybe crash on during his turn. And this way he can prevent that by, playing the 1/0, using that effect, and, not giving the opponent any extra soul.
Yeah, one thing I actually really like about the Ruby deck as a whole is that the finishing combos on a standby. So I think we saw Gemma doing it earlier in the Swiss rounds, but she was able to stand by the level 3 Ruby at level 2, and she was able to start burn 3 clock kicking opponent from level 2, which is just really, really insane, especially in a meta where there's a lot of standby. Your opponent has 2/2s with hand on core. You just say, nope, into clock now. It's really solid. Leon, what do you think?
Well, I think this is probably the right direction for Ruby decks, right? Especially with all the tech going into the Pyra, like Nando mentioned. Being able to make sure that the Pyra is actually going into memory is going to make the deck much more smoother sailing, I think. Also, I personally just love the dog. I love Zwei. It's such a nice card profile. It's really good in my opinion. You mill 2, then if it's a climax, you just get to ditch 1 card and then search. Just like that. It's a good doggo. Other than that, I haven't playtested with Ruby a bit, but I think this is the direction where Ruby decks might go in. Maybe a different top end, but we'll see how it works out. I think Kevin has a really good chance here.
Yep, and of course, we said before, it's built to beat standby. So of course, let's take a look at the Data Live list that Kevin's going to be playing. So this is Mark Guan, Team WCC. We saw it quite often on stream yesterday, and as we mentioned, a lot of Data Live decks nowadays are moving towards the red 2/2 Kurumi as their standby target, just because it has hand on core. Like there are some decks that are just trying to beat over it, like the 1/0 Miyuki from Kaguya, or maybe like anti-changing reverses, anything along those lines. But yeah, we see here he's still playing the 1 copy of the blue 2/2 standby target, and beyond that, he's added a bunch of yellow utility from Data Bullet. Walk us through some of the other Data Bullet cards, Nando.
Yeah, so we of course have the clock search that we've seen previously, the Kurumi level 0, that's new. The Climax Swap you mentioned before, but other than that, most of these cards are actually still from the first booster set. So it's pretty classic deck, I'd say, with tweaking it to be a bit more red focused, to have access to the 2/2 Hondan core. But other than that, it's honestly pretty similar to what we've seen before. And of course, we've already discussed this deck yesterday intensively as well. So one of the key techs here is the inclusion of the 1/0 counter, the green one, which is an anti-chain, so meaning it removes your opposing characters that are higher level than their opponent from the board. This one specifically sends them to clock even, so making it even impossible to Honda core them or pay 3 stock on core using the Kana, for example. So it was a really good call to include this in this meta. And other than that, specifically, I think the only other maybe tech card is the 3/2 Healer Toka that we've only seen once come down, but then get overplayed as soon as something better came up. So they have some extra plays at level 2 just in case. But other than that, it seems pretty straightforward, pretty standard.
Yep, for sure. Anything else you want to add, Leon?
I think there's another tech card that not all Data Live players run. Well, in this top 8, it's different a bit, but typically not a lot of players I see running the promo card the level 0 Kurumi that can side attack for free, which is also a really good card against standby decks. Obviously, because it's a promo card, that's the main reason not a lot of players are running it, because they don't have it available. It's just a really good card all around. Yeah, you can side attacking for free against standby decks is so good. And then there's also the Shido. It's also a standard card for Data Life, of course, but especially against decks like Kaguya, which gain a lot of power during opponent's turn or on play with the 3-2 Miyuki, you can just put that into memory, then they put it back, and it loses all the power. So instantly it goes from 15.5 to 11k.
Yep, very powerful.
Mark is not gonna play against Kaguya first round, so we'll see how that pans out. It's just something to keep in mind.
Yep, for sure. And of course, moving on, this is not the only top 8 game we have to look at. It is again another DAL match, but again, let's take a look at what it's playing against first. Oh, we're actually going to take a look at DAL first. So it's going to be Vince's deck. I mean, again, like I said, Vince is part of the same team as Mark and Darcy, so exact same list. Again, you're just highlighting the early play Toka, just give him a bit of bridging potential in the mid game. Like I say, the green 1-0 anti-change, just you have even more players against standby. But I think we can just quickly breeze through this. It's the exact same deck we just saw, and have a look at what he's playing against. Which I think is going to be Bao.
Yeah,
Germany.
8-wind SAO.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's going to be a actually it's one of the 2 games I think we may want to show, because again, 8-wind into standby. It's quite funny how the Weiss as a meta has evolved, right? Like I remember back in 2016, 2017, wind triggers were considered like one of the worst in the game because decks were just so stock efficient. Like, people play like costless 1-0s. They play like 2-1s that pay for themselves. So why would you ever want to blow anything back, especially when there's a huge amount of effective on-play effects? Whereas now, because we've moved into a game where people are playing standby and they're cheating out things for free, wind has suddenly become really, really effective.
Yeah, it's really cool personally. I think this is just what you want to see from a card game, right? Strategies constantly evolving and new strategies coming up because other strategies are starting to show really strong. So going into Bao's deck list here, we've already highlighted it yesterday, but the 8-wind SAO list is a pretty special list in a way that it has a really designated game plan, which is get the 2 Alice back rows out. One of the Alice back rows gains a marker if you trigger a bounce climax. That marker then in turn can, in the following turns, also bounce a character during the climax phase. They have a brainstorm that can brainstorm 5 cards and only hits on wind climaxes. And then they have a card kind of similar to Aaron from Attack on Titan, which on reverse, the Alice climax combo level 1 top checks the card. If it's a character, it goes to hand. And also the Alice gains the effect to bounce back to hand when it gets attacked. And then on their top end, they have a finisher that lets them burn 1 on attack, but also have a cancel burn effect that mills the top card and then burns the level of that card +1. So it's a really solid deck all around. I'm really looking forward to this rematch, since this is the rematch of the round 7 that both of these players played, where Bao lost. So maybe he can take it back this time.
Yeah, one thing I actually really want to highlight is you mentioned earlier on is that one of the weaknesses of standby decks is that the standby climax doesn't give soul when placed. So a lot of the time, standby decks don't actually accrue that early of a damage lead, and it's only once they get their 2/2s on the board and the swing for 2 or 3 soul every turn that they start to build that damage lead. And one of the cool things about the Alice level 1 combo is that it bounces itself when it's front attacked. So traditionally against things like Attack on Titan or Sayakano in the JP meta, or even Konosuba, where level 1s that bounce themselves, the way to play against this is that because you want to deny your opponent that plus, you sometimes are forced to side attack these level 1s just so that they have to stay on the board, and your opponent has to climax combo again in order to get that bounce off. And side attacking a level 1 obviously comes with a soul penalty, which when your level 2 has 2 soul, it might not be that big of a deal. But at the end of the day, that's still neg soul, and that's still damage that you, as the standby player, might not be putting onto the board. So yeah, that's I think another like hidden aspect that makes this deck really good going to standby. Any comments from you, Nando? Maybe how instead of playing the traditional 8 gate or door gate alicization, he's going for this.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that this is a smart choice. His build is also different from other 8-win decks that I've seen before. Some lists opt to run the Alice from set 1 instead of set 2, the one that heals and has cancel burn finishing effects. While this one has it as well, the other one is like shuffle back instead of a burn, or shuffle back and burn instead of a burn, but at a cost. This one is free. Then the other card I once again want to highlight, I think we briefly talked about it yesterday as well, is the 1-0 Kirito that is being displayed there, 2 copies of it, where you get it to on play, choose a character on your opponent's field, and until the end of their turn, they're not allowed to move that card at all. So what some players ended up doing in SCO and as well as in Ruby, they use that card to lock either the back row that's being standbyed, but also have the option to lock one of the bigger bodies, the 2-sol bodies, to a lane where they crash. And now they're forced to direct attack with that character and maybe, swing unfavorably into a compressed deck. So instead of using that lane to develop a 0 or something similar. So there's some really interesting plays you can do with that card. We've also seen it yesterday being used to even deny a level 0 run to guarantee the reverse on the Alice in the feature match against Tim, which was a really interesting usage of that card as well. Just shows how useful it can be when you get pushed to level 1 early as well. But other than that, I think it's just a solid build, and in the right matchup, this deck will perform much better than we saw yesterday.
For sure. Yeah, it's definitely a very great meta call. And of course, moving on to the final game, which I think is going to be the one we're going to show on stream for you. We will be showing Darcy versus Tim. The first up is Darcy's list, which is again WCC standard list. Not really much to talk about, but actually, I think there is one quick thing I want to mention going into the Bofuri matchup, which is the fact that WCC have tuned their list to be a lot more mid-game focused, right? Like they're playing the 1-0 anti-change counter, they're playing the 2-1 counter at 2 copies instead of 1. They're playing more standby targets. I think Darcy's list actually differs from the others slightly because he's not playing the blue 2-2 Toka, and instead he's just maxing out on the red 2-2 Kurumi, which is totally understandable. Yeah, like I said, it's a lot more mid-game focused rather than early game focused, like we see traditional DAO lists being. And I think that's actually going to favor him going into the Bofuri list because compared to the other anti-standby decks, Bofuri isn't as early game focused as, say, Sword Art or Kaguya, right?
Yeah, definitely. Some other small changes I noticed at first glance is he only runs 1 copy of the early play Toka. I think the others ran 2.
Yep.
And of course, noticeably, he has a bit more bling than the others in his deck.
Which
I'm sure Leon likes.
Yeah, I think he's replaced the early play Toka with a second copy of the yellow Kurumi.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what he did there. And you already mentioned it, there's no 2-2 blue Toka. Instead, he runs 4 Kurumi. And I'm not completely sure, but I think he's also not running the 1-0 counter that the others did. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, he's running it, yeah. This is Agabanov next to the 2-2 red.
No, I meant the red one. Or did he not run?
Oh, the red counter. Yeah, no. Oh, he did cut that, right. Yeah, so I think that's why he's playing the 4 copies of the Kurumi, right? Because he doesn't have the ability to defend his lanes as much. So he's a bit more reliant on the encore.
Yeah, so, some small tweaks, I guess some personal favorite or preference shining through there, but it's still overall the same list, and I don't think it'll differ that much from the others.
Of course, now for the list that I think you're the most interested in, Nando, we're going to see Tim's Bofuri deck that he's going to be playing against. We saw it on stream yesterday. It's just a really cool, solid list, and going into DAO, it's kind of does exactly what you want. And arguably, the fact that Darcy's tuned his list in a certain way, while it could be advantageous against Bofuri in one way, the fact that he's playing 4 copies of the Hand Encore, but we see the Frederica just says, I don't care about Hand Encore, back into the deck you go, that might actually work against him, right?
Yeah, it might, definitely. Now, there's really no benefit to having the Hand Encore. I think the blue Toka would actually be more preferable in this deck, so if they can't combo, you actually get more out of it, since you wall them anyway. But of course, you can't just build against one specific deck, and especially against like an underdog deck you might not even expect to see at a tournament. You're not going to tune it towards this. So this deck actually abuses that fact that people won't be expecting it. And overall, just a solid list. And Frederica just does too much work, in my opinion. And then you just keep spending your stock, keep trying to remove being annoying as much as possible. And you have such an efficient end game that it doesn't really matter how much you spend or how low on resources you are. You'll always get some kind of finisher out.
For sure. And Leon, so for those of you watching who weren't here yesterday or didn't see Tim's deck in action, Leon, walk us through this deck and sort of what it does and what some of the key cards are.
Yeah, okay. So what this deck does is basically accrue some resources on level 0 and 1. You just want to sculpt your hand for the 2/1 Fredericas, find the stock soul for it. On level 1, you have a combo that on attack mills 2 cards and then takes the level of those cards, and then you can salvage a character with that level or less from your waiting room. And on level 2 is where the deck really gets going, right? Before that, you just kind of sculpt your hand, you do your best to accrue some damage for your opponent, cancel for yourself, get your deck in check. Once level 2 hits, you want to slam down that Frederica, and that Frederica actually has an effect that lets it top check on Climax play, which is the stock soul, if there's another copy of the Frederica, if it's in front row as well. So you top check. If it's a character, you choose one of your opponent's characters and shuffle it into his deck. This is really strong, especially in the current standby meta, of course. And then once you do that, your opponent has to refield. They need to contest your board somehow. If they can't contest your board, then they just lose their characters right away, or they side into level 2s, which is both, of course, equally awful for them. Or they somehow manage to get over your Frederica, but then you can just stock and core them for 3 stock and just do it again if you have to Climax again. Doing it a second time usually means that your opponent will not have any resources to really come back. So this is why Nando often calls this deck Vice's version of a control deck. Once level 3 hits, obviously you have an early play as well for level 2 that can heal. Once level 3 hits, it has a really stock efficient game plan that can also finish pretty well, I'd say. They have a nice cancel burn that similar to the Alice second effect, mills the top card from your deck and then burns the level +1. They also have another character that can give cancel burn to itself and other characters, and spawn a character from hand, so for free, which basically makes it all the more stock efficient. Yeah.
Yeah, and one thing I do want to point out as well, we did mention the Honor Core might not be great against the Frederica, but it does play a role against the 1/0 Maple, which is also a pretty huge or pretty key card in this deck, which we usually call like a downsizer, where you get to on play choose one of your opposing characters, and then your opponent has to swap that character with a lower level from their waiting room. Now, in the case of the original 2/2 Toka, the blue one, there's nothing you can really do about it. It just becomes smaller. Usually, hopefully have a 1/1 in waiting room, play that instead. But against the 2/2 Kurumi, which has Antanko, you can actually opt to discard one to keep that pressure on the board, making them force, either play another downsizer or just concede that lane as they've wasted their play. So, there's some back and forth between that. It's not all that the Kurumi is always bad against this deck. It has some strong points at level 1.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, the other thing to mention as well is that Tim is playing like a normal level 1 combo. And fortunately, it's on attack, not on reverse. But at the same time, he might find himself struggling to contest board at level 1 because, sure, the Sally combo gains power during your turn when you play a Climax, but it's only 4k on the defensive. And so even though it's adding to his hand, Tim's probably going to be crashing quite a lot in the early game, especially because his level 0s are also fairly low in power. I think that's what that's going to be the opportunity that Darcy's going to be looking for to really pull ahead in that early game. But I think we spent enough time talking about the deck list. I think the players are ready to begin. So yeah, it's time to start the top 8 game.
Bofuri versus Data Life. I can see here that Data Life will be going first.
So who do you guys have favored initially here?
Well, Bofuri, of course, for me, but
no bias.
No bias.
Even without the bias, I'm in a similar boat here. Even though I said Data Life is going to win, still, Bofuri is a great matchup against Data Life. I can really see Bofuri just taking this match over. But we're gonna be seeing how it runs out, right? So Data Life starting, clocking to Kuromi. That's already a good start. They ditched the 1-1 Kuromi for the Mulligan. That's a great start, actually. Once they trigger a standby, they're gonna immediately have a great target engrave and on board subsequently.
Yeah, one thing I want to mention about Tim's mulligan is that he's discarded his level 1 gate climax, which implies to me he might have a second one in hand because you want to hold on to your level 1 climaxes in the early game. And being flooded isn't necessarily a bad thing for your level 1 because it's a digging, it's milling, and it pluses. But like we said, this early game is where Darcy's really going to want to find a way to take the lead and build an early damage advantage. I'm just wondering if that's going to maybe not play against Tim, but Tim doesn't have nearly as much deck control in the early game.
Yeah, definitely against this matchup. Usually we see Data Life try to stall, try to hit level 1 first. But in this matchup, I actually think he'd want to delay getting level 1 first, as most of Tim's level 1 combo, they reach pretty high powers. They reach like 8k with the climax, which is honestly insane for a level 1 climax combo. They also have one of the trial deck, sort of assassins, we call them, that can also reach high powers. So forcing him to spend those before he even develops is probably Darcy's goal here.
Yep, so we see that Tim taking a much more aggressive stance. I'm really interested to see how that plays out for him. You can see there, one of the cards that Tim has on play is Shin the Split Sword. It's one of the few oversizes that Bofuri has access to, and it actually has a fairly relevant effect as well, right? In that it can chase your opponent's lanes. That can also help Tim stay low on damage.
Yeah, this card is mostly amazing against Kaguya when you're expecting a lot of Kaguya, but it's also generally a decent plus when your opponent just can't get rid of the oversize. At worst, it just slows your opponent down, where they only attack one lane as they can't commit multiple 3500 plus attackers. So just overall solid card. The only awkward bit is, once it's on the stage, it forces all your other characters to front attack as they can no longer side attack, which can be a bit awkward as we see the Sally's only 500 power. So when she's forced to front, she'll almost always lose out on that battle.
Yep, so we see here Darcy's just again playing a bit of a setup there. Nothing major. He's committing the Kurumi that can side attack for no penalty. And there's the standby immediately. The early standby is what he said he wants to be looking for to get that advantage on the board. And like you mentioned, he does have the 1-1, which is the ideal target.
Yeah, important mentioning here, I'm gonna put it up on screen right away, is that the Kurumi actually has a second effect that will help it against the red card that we just showed, right? The Chaser.
Mhm.
It actually boosts one of your characters once it attacks by 1.5k power, and it can boost itself as well. So that's how Darcy got over Tim's 3.5k power right here.
Yeah, so he gave it 1-5 from itself to become 3k, and then plus 1k from the Brainstorm on Climax Play to become 4. It's
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
solid. Yeah. But again, both players not on a huge amount of damage. Tim is close to leveling up, and yeah, he'll actually play the Clock Search to get to level 1. I think that's good for him because, like you said, he discarded the level 1 Climax early, so he probably has another one in hand. So maybe he just wants to find his plussing combo as soon as he can, get the plus while he can, reverse Darcy's board, and then just try and set up for that big swing back with the standbys.
Yeah.
Searching out the level 1 combo there.
Also do want to know that Darcy did stand by to the back row. Meaning, I think he did notice that the level 1 combo can get quite big, so putting it on front to already start walling might not have been wise, and he wanted to respect that threat.
Yeah, I think that was definitely smart as well. Like, again, he knows that it's safe in the backline. It's not like he's playing against Sword Art, which can stun the back row. So by saving it and attacking with it later on, he's going to get much more mileage out of it than it being reversed by the Sally combo and just, like, say, blocking 1 damage. Let's see if Tim commits it here. Yep, there's 2 of them.
So he is playing his combo out.
Is he going to play a third? Yes.
Third one, okay. I'm not sure if I'm a huge fan of this. personally, these cards will not be very strong during Darcy's turn. Usually, Data Life does not present a lot of power, but we have seen before that they can just opt to play the 1/1 from hand and maybe get over the Sally, and that in return will just mean that Tim probably won't be able to contest his next turn, and I don't expecting him to hit level 2 this turn. So he probably has a turn where he will be bleeding resources a bit. Nando, do you think this is gonna affect the deck, seeing as you play it yourself?
This is definitely an aggressive turn for Tim. Either, he's very low on other playable cards. Maybe he kept onto some Frederica's already. So he's kind of forced to go into this to generate playables for next turn. I can definitely see something like that happening, where he might have got too greedy into the mulligan, not expecting the Shin Split Sword we saw earlier to get reversed, and not expecting the promo to, the one-off promo that Darcy had in his deck. To come and contest this. Sure, there's other ways to contest it, but sometimes you take that gamble. We actually do see him at the Frederica, so he might not have been that clogged and just wanted to use this climax to generate it as much as possible, since he was intending to play it anyway, which meant just playing the third one for the sake of getting that third extra card.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Yeah, one thing I want to highlight there is that this is the first deck. He's not mega compressed. Like, he does have some selection, but not an amazing range. Like, it does mill, so it's stuck with its own salvage, but it's not like, it doesn't guarantee him this perfect turn next turn. Like I said, he adds the Frederica, but there's no guarantee it's going to be coming out at level 2 anytime soon. And yeah, Darcy's cancelling much of this. He's not going to level 2 either. But as well, we saw in the first Sally attack, he actually milled one of the stock souls he needs for that Frederica. So if he doesn't already have one in hand, he might be setting up for a turn that's never coming.
Well, I sure hope it will come. Well, we're gonna see, right? If he cancels 1 or 2 attacks next turn, seeing as how standby doesn't really present a threat of actually sticking a whole 7 damage in 1 turn, especially at level 1. I don't see Tim hitting level 2 here, so he probably has another turn trying to find more Fredericas, trying to find the stock soul, trigger the pants, along those lines, right? But I'm really gonna be interested in what Darcy's gonna be doing here. Maybe he will play a 1/1 from hand, like I said earlier. Maybe he's just gonna play level 0s. We usually see Data Life doing that since they don't present other cards. Oh, there we go. We see it going down here.
Yeah, so he's hard playing the 1/1. He's hard playing the other 1/1 as well. So this other 1/1, I think, is a very relevant card here because it's the swapper on the board, which we see a lot of Data Life players using to keep their characters around, dodging things like anti-changes, dodging things like plus power against level 2s.
Yeah.
And even though Tim's not threatening on the board anytime soon, it's still something he can use to, say, well, even if you've threatened one lane, I can keep that lane alive. And yeah, Darcy here just coming back on the attack.
So this is mostly just to be able to bring out the 2/2 to the front row as soon as possible, I'd say. It could also be a case of not having other playables, but I think this just, shows Darcy's willing to play aggressive as possible to guarantee that Tim is forced to crash next turn.
Yeah, and it's like Leon said, standby decks don't have that much way to press soul. So Tim hasn't really taken that much damage at all this turn. So yeah, he does have one more turn at level 1, wherein he probably has some playables that he can do. But the problem is that he doesn't really have much else going for him. And at the same time, Darcy's playing a lot of high-level cards for standby reasons. He did check a few soul triggers there, so it's not smooth sailing for Tim either.
Yeah.
Tim whiffs a brainstorm, which I think is definitely not what he wants to see. I think, at this point now, he might be not short on playables, but I don't know if he can contest this board.
I mean, ideally, what you want to do here is replay copies of the Sallies. So maybe hit the brainstorm. There's probably one left in deck. I'm not sure if it's in waiting room. Since that Sally will be 8k, and then you can also present the other card that Nando mentioned, we're calling Assassin, the imposing and majestic Kazumi. I'm gonna put that up on the screen.
Yeah, so we see Tim actually using the Clock Searcher again. Not the most ideal thing to do here, but I guess since Darcy pushed so little damage last turn, only sticking 3, that Tim was willing to. Oh, yeah, okay. I can see why he might have wanted to get another
Yeah.
booster.
So he's refreshing with, I think it's only 6 here, which isn't the worst number, but it's still a reasonable number. But yeah, like I think this Casimir on the screen here is going to be a really good search target because it's one of the few playables that Tim can find right now to answer
Yep.
Darcy's standby targets. But again, like I said, Darcy has the 1/1 in play. If he only can threaten one lane, Darcy can just say, well, you can take this 1/1, take this Yoshino instead, and I'll keep my Casimir, thanks.
Yeah, however, if he has a blue climax, not only will the Kazumi be 8.5k, but also the Sally itself will be 8k for the climax combo, and you can search that one as well, right? Since he just reshuffled his deck.
Yeah.
So in that case, Sally is probably the better choice, of course. But it's still it goes to show that both of them can actually present quite a bit of power during their turn.
Yeah, and I think the ability to say, like, now that he's got the hit 2 on the brainstorm and he's refreshing with all his pieces, that's, Tim is a bit less upset about refreshing only 6 back in, because now he has all his things to search for. He can actually make plays again. And as you say, if he has another climax in hand to level 1 combo with, he's just milled the Frederica as the 4th card on his brainstorm. If he hits well on that combo, he can salvage a second Frederica and be perfectly set up for level 2.
Exactly. And also, refreshing only 6 is not that bad, but also means that the Stocksoul that is in his waiting room becomes a very nice target in case he does trigger one of the gate climaxes that he did refresh with, guaranteeing that Stocksoul in his hand and making the next turns all that more scary for Darcy.
Yep. So the 2 cards he's searching for is the level 1 combo and the Information Warfare Sally. This is I think is one of the most interesting cards we've seen being printed in Weiss in a while. It's big mind games. You look at the top 2. So there's 2 effects. First one is you look at the top 2 cards of your deck and rearrange, and then the second one is that when it's played, your opponent chooses a number between 0, 1, 2, or 3. Then you mill the top card of your deck, and if it's the level that they declared, you draw that many cards equal to that card's level plus 1. So if your opponent says 0, then there's a chance for you to draw a card. But because you know that your opponent's going to want to say 0 because they want you to draw as little cards as possible, you can stack a 0 to the top and basically guarantee that free card draw. Whereas at the same time, if you're not playing that many level 3s, your opponent can say 3 because then you're unlikely to actually hit at 3. But on the off chance that you do, you're drawing 4 cards.
Yeah, this card honestly is almost never bad to play. Like if you're forced to crash, I think you'd want to play this card even. It sets up your top deck. You can search for triggers, decide side attacks. It also has amazing synergy with the Brainstorm, in my opinion. You check the top 2, you can set whatever card you want to draw with the Brainstorm effect in case you're playing a climax. You're always like looking at new cards to draw. And of course, the biggest reason she's in the deck is just to have it to confirm the top check for the Frederica, as whiffing on that card. And when you really want to remove your opponent's board, seeing a climax on top just this pretty much destroys your whole game.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You see here that Tim has played the downsizer, as you say, and instead of removing one of the Kurumis, which has hand on core, like you mentioned, Darcy can just hand on core the removal. Tim's instead chosen to remove the 1/1 swapper Yoshino, which again is a threat off the board, is a stock wasted for Darcy, and is also most importantly, now Tim can reliably threaten those lanes without having to worry about swap. But I think he actually can't get the power, so yeah, he's just going to take the 1 reverse he can and maybe crash these clock searches.
Yeah, kind of unfortunate for Tim to not get a climax combo off here, but if he sculpted his hand, that's also fine, right? We saw him not searching a Frederica, so that either means he had all of them in hand already. I know he milled 1 with the Brainstorm, or it's just all lost. So
Yeah.
I would probably say he has them in hand.
Yeah.
And that probably means next turn we're gonna see a lot of Darcy's cards shuffled back into deck.
Triggering the gate there for Tim is huge. Like you mentioned, Nando, the fact that he can now add back the Stocksoul is absolutely perfect for him. And as you mentioned, because we've seen that he's not searching the Frederica, it means that he probably has them in hand already. So I think no matter what Darcy does, he should definitely expect his cards to go away next turn. Oh, we have some of the other game results in already. So on table 3, we have Vince beating out Bao again. Unfortunately, Bao could not get his revenge. So that is going to be 1 Data Live beating 8 Win Sword Art going to the quarterfinals. And then on table 4, Kevin Lauer versus Mark 1. Again, Data Live saying, go ahead, play anti-standby. I don't care. I'm going to win anyway. So I think we have confirmed that it's going to be a Data Live mirror on the other half of the semifinals.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
All day yesterday, and now it's finally happening. The Data Live mirror.
Looking forward to the Data Live mirrors, Nando.
I mean, we've been expecting it, so I'm looking forward to it. Let's see how a mirror works out here.
Yeah, it's a shame that Ruby unfortunately could not make it all the way, and again, we had these 2 anti-Data Live, anti-standby decks, just couldn't beat Data Live. The Darcy here hitting a Brainstorm. It's very interesting that it looks like he's playing this turn a little bit defensively because, again, like I said, he knows that his cards are going to go away next turn, so he doesn't want to commit too much. He gets the Shido. But does he do anything beyond this? Like, he pulls the 1/1 to the back row because it's going to be a lot less tempting for Tim to remove it. Tim's going to want to focus on getting rid of the front row instead, but that way Darcy still at least has an attacker for next turn as long as Tim doesn't go triple Frederica.
Yeah. So one thing to note, most standby targets that the best decks run usually gain power based on field conditions. Those field conditions being plus 1k for each other character you have, or plus 2k for each back row character you have. So the Fredericas being able to target almost anything on your board means that they could circle around that card, remove everything, and then make that standby target as weak as possible and just reverse it straight on instead of removing the threat from front row. And that's one of the versatile things that the Frederica does offer.
Yeah. Ooh, last card standby is not easy from Darcy there. It's going to whiff. So again, Darcy also refreshing with just 6 climaxes. Tim cancelling off the top is definitely a damage lead he's going to be happy to start building.
Yeah, that's definitely good for Tim here. We also see Darcy with a standby getting another 2/2 Kurumi onto the board. However, as we just said, that's probably gonna be shuffled back. But, well, I mean, maybe Tim whiffs the top checks, right?
Maybe. I mean, so as we said, one of the things with the standby targets is that they do gain power based on each other card you have in play. So as you're about to see here, the 2/2 Kurumi that Darcy is playing, it gains 1,000 power for each of your other characters. So one play that Tim can make is, if he wants to be a bit greedy about it, he can shuffle back both of Darcy's back rows, which then makes the Kurumi only 8k power, which is then enough to trade with the 2/1 Frederica without a counter. Of course, unfortunately, the 1/1 Kurumi there is not quite as easy to cripple. It's just constantly 7/5 as long as you have 2 or more other characters, which if Tim only shuffles back 2, Darcy will still have 3 characters on the board, so that will still be big enough. But of course, that's then a second lane that Darcy needs to counter instead of just 1.
Ooh.
Another whiffed standby. That is really scary for Darcy. And another cancel off the top for Tim.
So
this has just gone. I think the advantage in this game has just flipped on its head there.
yeah, and if Tim actually hits level 2 and gets his game plan off, it's really favorable for him now. Those 2 direct lane cancels were just really impactful, like denying any damage lead Darcy possibly could have. If I were Darcy, I might even consider siding or not attacking all, just to stick him to level 1, where we've seen he didn't prep as much for another turn at level 1. So that definitely was a line of play, but we'll see what Tim has.
We see him clocking the Riki, so in the end, trying that would have ended up with Tim just playing the Riki and clocking himself to level 2 as well.
Yeah, one thing I also want to mention is that Tim crashed 2 clock searches last turn, so he left his board fairly open, meaning that Darcy couldn't even crash his characters.
He's drawing 4!
Okay, it's a different effect. No
That would have been.
He's just rearranging the top two. We keep getting baited by that.
Yeah, we do keep getting baited. Oh, I just love that card so much.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention is that because Darcy didn't have any characters to attack into, Darcy doesn't even have the option to pay 3 stock to get those climaxes out if he wants to, and it means that all of this big overswings is just going to be. Sure, he's built some stock out of it, but Tim's just going to say, "Well, cool, thanks for a board I get to abuse now."
You think he has a third one?
We'll see what he does.
He does. Oh man,
That's what I said. We only saw him ever add 1, I think. So I think he kept 2 in his mulligan, which was why his initial turns he was forced to play the level 1 climax combo. So yeah, here we're gonna see what this deck just does best. And I think I'm expecting the back row and the 1/1 on front to be removed, just so he can contest the 2/2. But also, if he removes the 2 back rows and the center one, the Kurumi on the 1/1 Kurumi will also lose power and also lose Hanan Core. So that's probably the same.
Actually better choice here, right?
Well, she is buffed, so I'm not sure what the exact power is then.
I think it's just plus 1k from the brainstorm, so it's just if he removes 3 characters, it'll just be 7k, which is still in counter range. The Frederica doesn't gain any power from its combo, it's just going to be 8k on its own. And notably, the brainstorms don't give power either, and instead they just provide Tim with a huge amount of utility.
However, we do know that the only counter that Darcy is playing on level 1, and Tim knows this as well, since this is an open decklist format, is the 1k backup that is also an anti-change.
Yeah, we did mention before that he did cut the 102k backup from his list.
Yep. So maybe this is actually going to defeat him here, at least in this turn. Cutting the 2k backup is going to mean that he can only tie the 1 lane with the Frederica, and I don't think Tim minds that.
Yeah, I definitely would not take that trade if I was Darcy. You're losing 2 cards for 1, and it's definitely a disadvantageous effect there.
Yeah, and especially shuffling back 3 here, when you just trigger 2 climaxes with no benefit from them at all, it might hurt him.
Yeah, and that's the thing I like about removing the back row is that Tim doesn't leave too many open lanes, because they say, even though Darcy is now super uncompressed, he's just had 3 non-triggers put back into his deck after blank triggering twice. Direct attacks for 3 are still fairly favored to cancel, whereas instead here, front for 2, direct for 3, I think Tim can get a lot of damage onto the board. Ooh, Soul Trigger, so...
Yeah, and he even knew that Soul Trigger was there, opting not to draw it off the deck, just to push a bit more damage.
I think he did actually draw it. He did ditch for the climax, he ditched blue.
Yeah, he stacked and then drew first and then revealed.
Yep.
But yeah, this damage is going to be coming in, and
I mean, like, the top 2 check can see both triggers, so
yeah, that's true.
He knew what was there. He had the option to draw 1 more, but he kept the Soul Trigger just to be able to push.
It's a big swing for 4. Darcy does cancel, so it's not the end of the world. There's no massive damage swing for Tim, but it is a huge board swing. Like, Darcy now has to rebuild an entire board here.
Yeah, so I'm really curious how Darcy does this. This is one of the key moments for Data Life. How are you approaching coming back from this? And it really decides how the rest of the match will go. As you have to deal with 3 8k lanes, which honestly is still pretty big, especially when you have to start from scratch.
Yeah, it's definitely easier said than done for a lot of decks. Like, again, there's an argument for Darcy to pay 3 stock here, because he does know that there's 2 standbys in there. And if there's one thing that Data Life can do, it's go through its deck fairly fast, between brainstorms and between the red level 0 Toka. It does have a lot of filtering. So it's not beyond unreasonable for him to potentially chase a refresh this turn instead of, say, contesting a board. There's the 3 stock encore, getting out those climaxes. And again, I think we mentioned this last time Data Life was on stream, is that one thing that it relies on is keeping its massive bodies on the board. So if they fall off, if his characters get removed, he loses so much tempo there. And by keeping at least 1 body, which in this case is going to be the 1/1 there, he can at least have an attacker to swing back with, and maybe with a pump from the brainstorm contest a lane, but it is definitely still an uphill battle.
Yeah, so
just fixing the glare on Darcy's side. Yeah, there's the red Toka we mentioned. Darcy's hand is actually very healthy. I think he's got a full 7 or 8 cards in hand, so he does have options. Question is, I am willing to bet that a handful of those cards are going to be some number of level 3s that he's been just waiting to set up for.
Yep, and some might even be Yeah, the 2-2. I wanted to say that.
Yeah, hard playing.
Draw
Hard
up.
playing. I mean, it does contest the lane.
It does contest the lane, but it always feels bad doing it.
Yeah, especially because it means that Darcy's going to end this turn with 4 stock. And again, he hasn't been able to mill through his deck that much. So his deck is still relatively uncompressed, meaning that there's a very real possibility Darcy might end up on level 3 next turn. And with only 4 stock to play a level 3 game, that's only double Kirby. That's not a lot.
It's also worth mentioning here that if Tim manages to back up this one lane where Darcy is attacking with the 1-1, oh, okay, he doesn't. If he were to do it, and I mean, he can still just stock encore one of the Fredericas and then do the combo again next turn.
One thing I do want to mention, Darcy's Brainstorm being able to bounce back on Climax play is actually really huge in this matchup. Because it means that the Brainstorm is always an option. You're never afraid that it becomes sniped by the Federica at any point.
Yep.
So we see there that Tim used the 3-5 is counter, which makes the Frederica 11-5, which is big enough, just about big enough to get over the 2-2 Kurumi there. And that's really painful for Darcy, because remember, he just paid 2 stock for that, and now it's about to go away again, unless he either hand encores or does something else to keep it alive, and like I said, now Tim gets to keep one of the Fredericas on board, and here the middle lane Toka is way too small to level 0, so it's probably crashing to the other one. So Tim gets another turn of Frederica combo if he has another Climax. And I see there's a very juicy level 3 Kurumi on the board there on Darcy's side for Tim to shuffle away.
Really juicy target.
Yeah, so in Darcy's favor though, Tim did just hit level 3, so any extra damage he sticks here will mean Tim will need to either heal back or be forced to play something from hand. He can't necessarily 3-stock Encore the Frederica for free if he intends to heal back. We'll have to see how much of this damage sticks before Tim makes any decisions.
So you see the Kurumi, just sitting in Darcy's back row, just menacingly telling you like, this is a threat. You be worried about this.
Oh, so I think he actually upped the side attack here.
Yeah, I think so. And he just hand encores the 2-2. Again, he just doesn't want to lose characters on the board. Like, now that Darcy has the damage lead, I think he needs to do everything he can to maintain that. Because all Tim's going to do is just remove Darcy's board. If not, Tim has to. If Tim pushes for a win instead, Darcy's okay with that because he's only at 2-2. It's not even close to lethal range.
And we've said yesterday how you don't want to fall behind against 8 Standby in particular, but also Data Life in general. Since the Kurumi finisher is just such a strong finisher, and in Standby decks, like dedicated Standby decks, obviously it's just going to be that much more scary since you can get it out at level 2, like Darcy did here. And if Tim does not manage to shuffle this back, this means that even if Darcy does not hit level 3, he can still attempt finishing turns with the Kurumis that he got.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there was the last card in his deck. I think Tim was hoping to maybe draw it for turn, but instead he just has to brainstorm and then find another way to grab them. That is one thing I just want to bring up about Tim's list, is that most quote-unquote normal Bofuri lists that we've seen that play like, say, Gate Choice or Gate Stock Soul, or basically the non-Frederica versions, they'll play some number of the level 0 Frederica, which when it's reversed, top 3, add a Climax, discard 1. And Tim's not playing any of those. So his Climax selection, his ability to get Climaxes is limited to just either hitting gates or drawing them off the top.
Yeah, but they do have some draw power in the Brainstorm, of course. And as you said, the gates will pay off. But I think in this specific scenario, if he did want to have the Stock Soul in hand, he could have actually clocked. So to me, that tells he might have one already, if that's possible. I haven't really kept track of his waiting room that well.
Yeah, it could also just be that, he's on level 3 now. He doesn't want to push himself unnecessarily to like 3-2 or 3-3, especially because he's refreshing. Because as you say, 3-2, 3-3 is very lethal for Kurumi.
Yeah, definitely. So we have to see what this his reasoning here was.
I think if he already had one, then he could have also opted to just stock Encore the 3rd Frederica.
That's definitely a possibility as well.
Especially since Darcy does Encore first, since he was the turn player. So Tim would have
knowing that Darcy committed the hand Encore to the 2-2, that could have given him reason to okay, well, I'm going to shuffle them all back next turn anyway.
Yep.
But even 2 Frederica, I think, is fine here because he can shuffle back the 3-2 Kurumi,
Yeah,
which is a massive threat, and then
it's a-
shuffle back the 1-1, which has been pumped by the Brainstorm, which then makes the 2-2 only 7k, which is really easy to reverse.
Yeah, that's true. Or you can just do it again like last turn, right?
Yeah.
Shuffle back the 3-2 and the 2-2, then the 1-1 will only be 7k and you can run over that.
Yep, so he does get 1 hit on the Brainstorm. So if he already has a Climax, he's probably just searches for either another Frederica or maybe a level 3, maybe a healer because he's about to refresh. Oh, he's searching for a Frederica. I think that tells us everything we need to know, boys.
Yeah, definitely a healer would have been an option as well. Just pay 2 stock, bring yourself back to trio. 2 snipes would have been enough. But I think, yeah, this tells us he's intending to do another Climax combo here.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
also goes back to listening to your cards, right? If your cards you want to shuffle 3 back, then you shuffle 3 back.
It could be scary though, as we did not see him add any kind of top check. So we might see one of the Fredericas with. Of course, you'd hate to see it with, but as long as it's only one, it's okay. As you have the Brainstorm to manipulate the top of your deck. If you see a Climax, you just draw it off and then hope the other one isn't the Climax.
Yeah, you can trigger your arrangement. So like having multiple Brainstorms and Frederica's mean that you resolve the first Frederica, reveal top. If it's a whiff, you resolve the Brainstorm before the other Frederica's to discharge, discard, and draw. That is a really strong synergy there. I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's all the same timing, so it's all allowed. You can choose any order you want. You can even draw first if you top check the Climax that you want for next turn. Yeah, you're free to do whatever you want, as it's all during the Climax phase when a Climax is played.
Yeah, one thing I actually thought Tim might have done is actually search for another copy of the Information Warfare Sally, because not only does it guarantee the existing Frederica's, but it also maybe Clock Refresh and Climax is not great. It's not what you want to see. So maybe he's regretting not grabbing a healer there. But like I said, it also would have also allowed him to set up the 2 existing Frederica's, as well as potentially gamble for a draw to maybe draw into the Climax that he could have been missing. But I think searching for the 3rd one means that he definitely has the Climax. But he's instead just going to heal here because he's doesn't want to see that Climax in his clock. And he's going to overplay. Yep, there it is.
So the Frederica does only work from front row, so you'll need to move the 3-2 to the back. But it pretty much served its purpose already, unless he's using it to attack, of course.
Which isn't also a terrible idea, right? It is a 2 soul body, and Tim is behind on damage, so he attacking for 3 soul could be exactly what he wants to do here.
There's also no threat of the 3-2 being killed. No, he's just going to
plays over it.
anyway.
I don't mind this too much because in the worst case scenario, if he doesn't lose anytime soon and he gets to refresh, it's another soul icon that goes back into his deck, which can push damage.
So we'll have to see the top checks here. The Brainstorms will be clutch if he reveals that Climax.
So the first one.
Maybe.
And it's a hit.
Ooh,
Oh boy.
And it's such a good hit as well. You can draw that to downsize anything else next turn. If you want to with the Brainstorm.
Surely Darcy is playing the Encore.
Yeah, that Encore became costly. The discard one for no value at all.
Yeah, and again, like I said, Darcy's overall paid 2, discard 1 to just take a direct attack. It's
And we saw him go from a really healthy hand, some healthy amount of stock, to only 3 hand, only 4 stock, if I'm correct.
That's 4 stock. So yeah, he has at most he has double Kurumi, and then Climax, and that's his whole turn.
Yeah, but that's still scary in my opinion. Double Kurumi, you don't want to face that.
It is definitely still lethal. So Tim's not out of the woods just yet.
Yep.
And again, Darcy's only on 2-2. That's Tim needs at least 2 more turns to win this game.
Yeah, but he does.
And we have the last result coming in. Albert beating Kern, so that's 3 out of 4. Data Live move on to the quarterfinals, and unfortunately,
do you guys want to change your predictions?
Well, I mean, my prediction just got stumbled right there and there, so I have to now, right?
That's true.
This is an insane swing for 5. If this sticks,
it sticks.
Oh
it
my
sticks.
goodness.
Oh my god, that
it
is
actually ended here.
It also
Oh, Dennis.
sticked with 1-3 to Kurumi, 1-2 to Kurumi, and 1-1-1 Kurumi.
That's actually insane.
So yeah, not only is Darcy lost the damage lead, he's also lost a lot of pieces to attack with.
Okay.
Go
Darcy
again.
does have another turn here. It's only a frontal for 2.
Yeah, it's the smallest amount of damage, but it
Oh,
really
Another Kurumi,
he still
though.
doesn't cancel it. Yeah, and he's running out of ways to win the game.
I'm
So
really
what's-
curious how Darcy will do this now.
And I think he's also out a lot of his standbys for that Kurumi combo. So even if he had 3-2 Kurumis, I don't know if he has any more standbys to combo with. And again, Tim did just refresh, so his deck is not massively compressed.
No, we did see him play a climax. He did have 1 in clock, and he just triggered a 2-soul that stuck the amazing 5 damage. So he's at least 3 out. We, of course, don't know what is in his hand.
We'll see how Darcy wants to play this. And again, these Federicas aren't huge. They're only 8k, so they're easy to reverse, but they are still soaking damage.
Yep. We
Which
do
means
see
that at least Darcy has to swing for like 2-3-2 at a minimum to even threaten lethal this turn. So maybe this is where the second copy of the yellow Kurumi comes in handy, because it is non-climax linked burn. It's a bit of extra reach that he might be able to chase. Again, the question is he only has 2 stock and not a lot of hand, so it might be too much resources for him to commit.
I mean, this is where the power of the Frederica lies, right? You see, Tim resolved that combo twice, and Data Life already is in a predicament. I mean, obviously, Darcy did take a lot of damage there, but even without the damage taken, he would have not have much resources to actually do anything with. He would have had to really spend his resources wisely from that point.
Yeah, we know that Darcy does at least have 1 brainstorm in his hand that he bounced back, every turn. He always has that option available to him, but again, he doesn't have a lot of stock to play with, and a stock spent on brainstorming is a stock not spent on level 3s. And of course,
Especially-
one other drawback is that it's a rest 2, not a rest self. So
Exactly.
he needs to commit another card from hand to rest for the brainstorm effect, which I don't think he can afford that either.
Yeah, and I think Darcy is also heavily considering using the drop salvage here, but that would also mean that he's only able to field 1 finisher, and that might not be enough, as we said. Tim seems to be only 3 out. So Darcy would need a bit more than just 1 Kurumi.
It's also
Either
worth
the yellow or
mentioning
the red
that
one.
Darcy clocked the turn, so he's now on 3-6, and he only has 4 cards in deck. So if he does anything like, if he overextends without playing a 3-2 Kurumi from hand to heal, he will die to refresh.
Now, well, he's 6 since he has the 2 that are still technically part of his deck because he's looking at them.
Right, yeah.
He just placed them off. But yeah, if he can't heal, then refresh damage will already be lethal.
So I think that might be an argument for him, being forced to go for the pay 1 drop salvage here, just to guarantee a heal, just so he has at least a chance of not losing immediately.
Also, interestingly enough, he clocked the refresh back, which might have helped. I think he just assumes that there's no way he'll keep the board anyway, making that obsolete. Especially if he can't contest all of the Fredericas.
Yeah, it's curious that he hasn't used it earlier, given how uncompressed his deck was. Like, that's one of the
Well,
other advantages of Frederica, right? If
yeah,
you
he
couple back
couldn't.
so many cards.
He couldn't really use it as there was no board to use it on.
Oops, I think that's gonna be the drop salvage, it looks like.
I think that's the clock searcher, but I assume he's just fielding that for the sake of fielding it.
I think he's discarding it, because that's the pay
Discarding
1
it.
discard one.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
So yeah, I think he has to go for the heal here. Otherwise, Tim's next turn is the last for sure. Going for the. Ooh, that's an interesting grab of level 3 there. So for those of you who missed that, Artie just grabbed the level 3 Kotori.
Oh,
Traditionally a back row. So it's hard to see that because of the glare, but is what it does. It's gives characters in front 2k, and on play from hand, choose one of the following to perform it. You can either look at 3 and add 1, or you can choose one and salvage, or he can give all of his characters 1k,
Yeah.
1 soul.
That's a very interesting choice.
So he's chosen the 1k, 1 soul, and this is lethal, right? He has 3/2/2 on his soul attacks.
Yep. This is a really strong play here by Darcy. Really smart as well.
Yeah, and like I said, Tim is fairly uncompressed, so there's a good chance this 7 just sticks and this could be game. Did he shuffle back 2 with the promo level 0 Kurumi? I don't think so. So,
Ooh.
it's a
Trigger
good
as well. Cancels
cancel
not
off the top. That shit's-
But 2 triggers will still do it though.
Yeah, Darcy can still win this if he hits.
2 triggers will do it.
Yeah,
He
that's what
needs
he
to
needs.
see a trigger on both attacks, and he might still be able to clutch. And I think he just scoops.
Yeah, I think he realized he doesn't have enough. He might not have enough triggers there. Like we saw, he damaged the 2/2 Kurumi. He damaged 2 copies of the 3/2. He's played the Kotori from hand. I think he just doesn't. He knows that he doesn't have enough soul icons left in his deck to go for it, which that's really unfortunate. But yeah, that cancel off the top from Tim there pretty much set the result in stone.
Yeah, but that was still scary facing those 2 cards.
Yeah.
2 attacks, 2 triggers could still end it. I think Tim, when he saw Darcy's scoop, probably sighed for relief.
Yep. Wow, that's what a game. I mean, what a way to start the top 8, right? Like, it was such a back and forth. Like, Darcy starting off really aggressively, Tim, not maybe overcommitting his level 1 a bit too early, but then not getting punished for it, and then coming back with the Frederica, shuffling away Darcy's board, Darcy being unable to mount the comeback, and just faltering at the end there, like okay, it's just here's some zeros, here's some ones, hard play a 2/2, it gets removed immediately, and then even though he had that last glimmer of hope towards the very end of being able to, okay, plus soul to the board, here's my final push, and it just didn't get there despite Tim.
Yeah, I think that
there
last
was a
part,
chance, but
yeah,
wasn't
no,
there.
I think the choice Darcy made there at the end was honestly really smart and really unexpected. Going for that all-in push, we were all expecting like either one of the Kurumis to maybe like try and do some burn, but just having that guaranteed soul was actually, I think, the scariest option he could take for Tim. And as I said, Tim probably sighed in relief when he just gave up after that first cancel. But well played to both players. And honestly, for Data Live, that matchup is kind of hard once the Frederica gets rolling. Once they do multiple turns, you just kind of have to like find the right cards to rebuild. And he did manage for 1 turn, but just the second combo completely demolished anything he had.
Yeah, and one thing about the Frederica that really came out in that game is the decompression. Like, sure, he double triggered standby blank on the previous turn, but then Tim just goes, okay, shuffle back 5 cards into your deck, and then even though he triggered a 2 soul off the top, swing for 5 on a direct, it stuck because Darcy was just that uncompressed.
And we saw, right, in the 5, there was actually 3, or at least 3 copies of the cards that he actually did shuffle back. There was a 3 to Kurumi, he shuffled that back. There was a 2 to Kurumi, he did shuffle that back. And the 1/1, he did shuffle that back as well. Obviously, it might not be the exact copies of the card, but it was those cards. So
Yeah.
it's always possible.
Sure, but that's it. So that's the end of top 4. And so we don't have a complete Data Live sweep, but it is going to be 3 Data Lives moving on to the semifinals, along with this one Bofuri against the world. It's going to be really exciting, but we're going to take a quick break while we get set up for that. Don't go anywhere. And of course, as always, make sure to tweet with the hashtag BRO2021. We're going to be looking at the Dal mirror just off the break. So we'll see you then in a bit.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Weiss Schwartz Bushiroad Rumble Online 2021. We are here in the semi-finals after a very exciting game of Bofuri versus Dal, seeing Tim take the win. Finally, the anti-standby builds are finally getting their win. But of course, on the other end of the bracket, which we're going to take a look at soon, Dal did beat out the 8-wind and the Ruby decks that are, quote-unquote, built to beat Dal. It just goes to show you David versus Goliath. Sometimes Goliath does win. But yeah, going into the Dal mirror, we have Vince versus Mark, two very well-known players in the community. Both part of Team BCC, both playing the exact same deck, both done a lot of testing. They've know this matchup inside and out. What do you guys think is going to be the deciding factor in this mirror match, Nando?
Yes, so we do know that both players are playing very similar lists. I think these two even exactly the same list.
Yep.
And they've probably practiced so much against each other that they know how one another plays. So when you have two players playing the exact same list, the exact same skill set, they're almost on equal levels, then certain other roles, outside factors, start playing a role. So a bit more luck is involved. Maybe like Vince is tired after this almost full night run, might start playing an effect right now. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep. Leon, what do you think?
I'm with Nando here. I think exhaustion will play a big part, since at least Vince did play a lot of rounds just now. I mean 3 rounds, of course, but now the other round in top 8, I'm not sure if Mark actually was also in the semifinals or the top 8 in AO, but I think exhaustion will definitely play a part here.
Yeah, like both players were awake, if nothing else. I actually see here that Mark did make top 4 in AO as well. He came 4th, so he did play that final 3rd, 4th decider. So I think when it comes to tiredness, they've both been up and they've both been playing for the same amount of time. So yeah, it's definitely going to be just a case of who makes a mistake first, right?
Yeah, definitely mental fatigue is going to play a role. Also, Vince already won, so maybe Mark has a bit more pressure on him, which might take its toll or just push him that much further in his decision making. So we'll see how that goes.
Yep, for sure. And let's not stall too long. People might not be that excited to see Dal because it's like the big villain of the format, but I think a Day Life Mirror is always going to be exciting to watch. So let's just jump straight into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the finals of Weiss Schwartz BRO 2021 EU region. Gentlemen, it's all led up to this, the final match. We have Bofuri versus Data Live. This is a matchup that I just couldn't be more excited for, honestly.
Same here, definitely.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm kind of speechless still because Bofuri was the one deck. I've been advocating for this specific deck ever since, I don't know, like half a year ago, even maybe longer. And Tim, definitely a good player in our local community, has been one of the early adopters of it. Definitely showing how strong it can be if you're expecting a lot of Dal. Yeah, and I think the results just speak for themselves. Win or lose, he managed to beat so many Data Live, even losing in the finals, while not desirable, a slip up can happen somewhere. Like no deck is
already a winner in the heart, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, it already took the whole tournament.
Yeah, for sure. And again, even in the top 8, there were just so many well-known, high-caliber players that Tim had to fight through. Being one himself, it's a really exciting top 8. Like anyone could have won. Dal decks being piloted by members of WCC, anti-Dal decks piloted by people who are well-known in their communities. It really was a toss-up. So,
would a swing for 4 have kept Vince in the game?
That was
I'm
incredible, yeah.
Sort of shaking. I don't know if anyone can see it, but what an intense game.
I'm left speechless after this, I gotta say.
Yeah, I mean,
it was
Bofuri does what Bofuri does.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Vince, he had a really rough early game. He took like 10 damage straight, uncancelled. He was behind in damage the entire game, but it just goes to show like the caliber of player that he is. That he was able to like mount a comeback. He was able to push Tim back a little bit. He was still always able to make plays. Sure, at the very last thing, he was just putting down a backup just to attack, just for nothing else. But it was still, he wasn't just dead on board. He wasn't just out of the water. Like at every single point, there was that slim chance he could have survived and made a comeback. And the fact that he played to that slim chance every single time was just really, really impressive. But Unfortunately, in the end, Tim just dominating the game there. Frederica, as you say, doing what it does best. It's what it's built to do, and Tim just takes the crown. But what a game to end on! Like,
What a game indeed. And I think we've mentioned it during the match, or at least I have. Like, even with the 2-level lead, Finns is such a strong player that Finns is such a strong player that Tim never actually could feel safe. So he always had to be careful, always think of his moves. And
Yep.
yeah, Finns tried the best he could, but the deck is made to beat Dahl. Sure, it didn't even seem necessary to start with that much of a damage lead, but it just meant that even if Finns could try and crawl back, the Fredericas were there to deny any advantage he could build up.
yeah, for sure.
This
Even
was the
if, like,
game we wanted to see.
exactly, like even though Tim was always in an advantageous position, he was never like he could never relax because he was always aware that okay, the threat of Vince as a good player playing Dao, which is a really good deck, like there was always this like, hey, if I like lose focus for just a second, it could all slip away from me. But the fact that he was still able to keep a calm head and just like play the way he needs to play, like being very patient with his Fredericas, knowing to hold them for the next turn, just to like spin away all of Vince's cards is just exactly what he needed to just blow his chances wide open.
Exactly as you say. And Leon, I have to ask, do you regret sticking with your choice after this match?
No, I do not regret sticking with my choice. I did say that I'm happy if Wolferi wins, and I am happy. Well, I mean, I said it, right? What is more Euro than having a Wolferi deck of all decks win the tournament? And
Sure.
nonetheless, Tim is from Europe as well, so EU being won by a European does feel a bit good.
Yeah, last
For
time
sure.
we got beat by the Australians, so this felt like a grudge match of sorts, right?
Didn't
Like,
exactly get back because they still won their own tournament, but at least we got back our pride, you know?
exactly.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, after that game, we're gonna have a quick interview with the winner, Tim, in a little bit. But first, production actually has some really cool stats and data to show us. So let's have a quick flick at some of these graphs and see, like, reflect back on the tournament up until this point. Because then, even though that was an exciting finals, we've had a very exciting tournament like from the beginning. So like between round one, like an incredible matchup in round one to a very weird Kantai deck round two to very world caliber players in round 3 and 4. But yeah, we're going to start off by looking at the top 8 representation. So you can see here it's 4 Data Live making 50% of the field, 1 Kaguya, 1 Ruby, 1 Bofuri, which did win in the end, and 1 Sword Art Online. So unfortunately, a lot of these decks fell to Data Live in the top 8. So going from top 8 to top 4, it was 3 Data Live and then 1 Bofuri. But given the community's understanding of that, Data Live is maybe one of the best decks in the game right now, maybe ever. I think this is actually a surprisingly varied top cut, right? Like,
Yeah,
there's
definitely
4 other decks here.
Yeah, Daily Life with 4 representation, that was to be expected. A lot of people still highly think of that deck, and of course, it is such a good deck. Being able to consistently top not only in this region but in AO and I think in NA at least a couple as well. So yeah, nothing special there to be expected. SCO, of course, one of the other Daily Life focused counters, with the wins, trying to deny as much as possible. Sadly, did fell to Data Life. So, but of course, 2 Finns. So Finns had to face 2 Data Life killers in top 8, which is quite insane if you think about it. And still managed to get to finals.
Still really impressive.
Yeah, still really impressive. Ruby, of course, one of the other ones that was heavily favored against Standby by the power thresholds they reach and the non-interactive climax combo at the top. Also, sadly, didn't make it much further than top 8. But yeah, the one deck that did manage, the one deck that was also specifically built both free, got to the top and did what I dreamed of. So
went all the way, yeah. So
went
real quick here, we do have the stats from AO and NA top 8. I don't think we're not going to show them on the screen, but I'll quickly mention it. So AO was also 4 out of 8 Data Live, 2 Kaguya, 1 Fate Stay Night, and 1 Adventure Time, which is a very surprising inclusion. And then meanwhile in NA, we had 2 Data Lives, 2 Slime, 2 Sword Art, 1 Love Life Sunshine, and 1 Ruby making it into top cut. So yeah, it just goes to you that NA, like, Data Live really, dominating the format, making a huge number of top cuts throughout all three regions. I think we have some other graph to show you at the moment here, which production is going to go to in just a second. Yep. So yeah, we're going to quickly run through a few more graphs, not spend too long on them. Then we're just going to throw it to a real quick break after this, and then we'll be back with the interview in a few moments' time. But yeah, real quick here, we have the total win rates of all the decks. So you've got Data Live and Slime, being in terms of how many people were playing them, which you can see as the size of their bars, but Data Live there with just really huge positive win rate there. So 60 wins and then 50 losses. That's just over 50%, I want to say. Like, every other, you look at Slime, Fate, Quintuplets, Bang Dream, much more losses than they have wins. And it just goes to show that it's really hard to just fight into the power of Data Live.
Yeah, obviously a win and losses ratio isn't the end all be all, since if people drop, then obviously they're not going to be accumulating any more wins or losses. For example, if you lose 3 times, then drop, then that particular set will have 3 losses from you, but not any wins. Maybe you would have picked up wins later. But to me personally, it's really interesting to see how high of a comparison ratio Ruby has of wins and losses. It looks like it's almost has double the amount of losses than wins, even though what I said earlier.
Yeah, it's looking like, I think
Yeah.
just under 20 wins for Ruby, but just under 10 losses as well. So yeah, you
Yeah.
can see there, like the decks that have a higher blue bar than red bar are definitely converting way better. And like I said, Kaguya, Ruby, these are the decks that we expect to be really, really good decks. But it's really nice to see that, even the less represented decks, like for example, JoJo, Seven Deadly Sins, Sword Art, even though they didn't do that well, the fact that people can play them and still get some wins, is just going to show that Weiss as a game is never set in stone, which I think is really cool. But I think we don't want to keep you guys too longer, so we're going to cut to the interview real soon. But we're just going to quickly go for a very short break while we set up the interview. So we'll be back in just a few seconds. Don't go anywhere. All right, everyone, welcome back. We are here with our champion, Mr. Tim Sluman from the Netherlands. First of all, Tim, huge congratulations on winning the event. I'm sure you must be very, very happy with it right now. Tell us what's going through your mind.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. I'm really excited that I've been able to carry Beaufry this far.
Yeah, let's go.
So, yeah, I'm just almost a bit flabbergasted.
To be expected after that game. Such intense match, even with that lead, I'd say. Especially those last few turns were probably very clutch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think it was from actually start to finish, from like drawing the drop surge that can like give minus power just to get over it, and also when he had a big board just to remove it with the 1-0s.
Yeah, especially that turn was like, wow, it's such a power move. But that deck is capable. Did you think, like, were you afraid he was just gonna hunt on Quorum, or were you like calculating that?
I was thinking about it a bit, but because he was behind that much, I didn't think he could afford to lose that much hand if it was like his level 3 combo or something he was holding.
And it definitely worked out for you. Something that I think not just me, but I think a lot of people at home might want to ask is, why Beaufry? Like, what made you decide like this is the deck to beat Standby?
Well, I basically played it in the previous shop league a lot of times. There was a bit of less Standby then, but I noticed I really liked playing it versus Standby because you have so many tools to just remove the board or get control over the opponent.
Solid. Leon, anything from you?
Yeah, so what do you think this deck holds up against the newer sets that have come out, right? They all have some way of dealing with standby. How do you think Ruby, for example, will be a matchup for this deck?
I think it will be quite a hard contest from control on level 1 because it just depends on Mubicon's level 1 first that can like run over the other one. But I still think the Frederica 2-1 combo will stay like very strong because it has the potential to just remove strong boards in the front or the back, depending on the situation.
I mean, and this is the reason to play it in the end, right?
I personally know, since Tim is from my locals, that he was also considering SEO at one point. What made you choose between Beaufry and SEO, and what was the final decision? Was it purely that expecting a lot of data live, or was it something else?
Yeah, it was more like I didn't felt confident enough with SEO because I kept like not seeing the damage levels or just losing control midway because like for versus Kaguya, for example, they have the Miyuki that just can run over anything they want, and with SEO you lose control very quickly, and so do your resources.
Yeah, all right. So, it was an exciting finals as well, but the top 8 match, the top 8 we had to get here, you had to fight against Darcy, a very well-known member of WCC. You then had to fight against another Data Live in the top 4. And even beyond that, like even your Swiss rounds, going like X1 in Swiss is no easy feat, especially in like a big tournament like this. So this question is two-ended. The first one is, any highlights, you want to, any like anything you specifically enjoyed from the Swiss round, anything you want to like say, you enjoyed about this tournament? And secondly, what do you think, what's really stands out to you as like, your journey here to the finals?
Yeah, I think it was really the matchups versus Dull, because I think I was quite confident in those. And I was quite lucky with the other matchups, like I was versus Bunny Girl and versus the SEO Alicization Wind build. The final round in Swiss I lost, unfortunately, but I think it was really close too, just because the Frederica combo gives you that much, makes your opponent struggle for that much resources.
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask, what was your journey up until the tournament? Did you have any special preparations, or did you just go to locals when they were? Did you do online locals? Did you do any specific matchup knowledge?
It was basically locals, but also like I think Nano made a video about Beaufry earlier, so a big shout out to that, because that's really where the basics of the deck come from. It's really explained well, and the rest of it was just like building boards of Doll in my mind and trying to guess how to break them the best. So, like for example, the 1-0 that can change it back to a 1-1, which then can be run over by just a climax combo on level 1 is really good.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great to hear. You know, spoken like a true champion, as it were. So I guess just to wrap it all up, you know, if you got any other shout outs, you know, anyone you want to say thank you to, you know, or just anything you want to say to the people watching at home.
Well, firstly, yeah, shout out to again Nando for the video, because without it, I don't think I would have picked up the deck. I really just liked it, and also shout out for ENTCG for hosting the tournament. And yeah, thank you all for also showing it.
Okay. One last question for Tim. Tim, does the deck beat S tier?
Well, I think we can say from the tournament results, it's a pretty good matchup.
I think so as well. Thank you.
There you have it, folks. That is once again, congratulations to Tim, our EU champion. Enjoy your promos, enjoy your booster box of Rent a Girlfriend, and of course, most importantly, enjoy your very hard-earned break. Once again, well done. I think from the three of us, we couldn't be prouder as a fellow EU representative. But yeah, once again, ladies and gentlemen, your champion, Tim Sluman. So it's been an exciting tournament for us so far. You know, we've had 7 rounds of action-packed Swiss, followed by very, very close games throughout all 3 rounds of top 8. But I'm afraid we've come to the end of the road. It is the end of the tournament. So I just want to thank everyone at home for watching and tuning in, you know, supporting us in the Twitch chat. I want to thank my fellow co-hosts, Nando and Leon. You guys have been an absolute pleasure to work with. What are your final words? Send us off, Leon.
I'm sending us off? Okay. No. Thanks to everyone for watching. I think we've had a great tournament. We've had a great assortment of matchups as well. I like that very much this time. I think we showed up a lot of different decks, a lot of different matches, a lot of different people. The matches were super exciting, especially thinking about the round 7 Swiss. I mean, who doesn't remember the Kaguya versus Data Life matchup, right? That was really nerve-wracking in my seat. So yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thanks Bushiroad for doing this tournament. Thanks ENTCG for hosting it. Thanks to all the production crew behind the scenes that we can't see right now. Thanks to the judges. And of course, thanks to the players as well for showing up and playing.
Especially the players.
Yeah.
Nando, what about you? Give us your final thoughts.
I want to thank the same people that Leon mentioned. Mentioning them all once again will take probably too much time, but he covered all of them. So hopefully you'll accept this thank you as well. Just one more quick for Ben, since he thanked us. Gotta acknowledge him as well. You've been very pleasant to work with, Leon, as well. Yeah.
You too, by the way.
No, it was a great day, great tournament. After such an amazing Swiss, we got even better top 8 cut, I'd say. It was just a pleasure to watch. I'm sure the audience at home will probably agree. So I think that was it for us. Ben, if you'd like to say the closing words.
Well, actually, before we end, I think we actually just have some updated graphics for the top 8 of AO, EU, and NA. I'm just going to give production a quick minute there, but you can have a look. There you go. Like I said earlier, AO, 50% Dal, 2 Kaguya, 1 Fate, and 1 Adventure Time sneaking into top 8 there. That's a really interesting lineup. Again, you know, very similar to what we had in EU, but unlike in EU, Dal managed to sneak out the win there, whereas for us, it was, you know, the dragon was slain, as it were. So as we move into EU, you can see here the next region.
Through the corner.
Yeah. The variety on the other half is a bit more open-ended, but yeah, Bofuri there taking up the whole thing. And of course, finally in NA, where there's a little bit more variety overall, but still a lot of Dal. You can see the next graph there. So 2 Dal, 2 Slime, 2 Sword Art, 1 Sunshine, and 1 Ruby. So a lot more varied there, but also arguably a lot more in line with what we expect from the meta, right? You know, Dal's one of the great decks out there. Slime likewise with its newest set of updates, and these other decks are sort of like anti sort of standby sneaking in there. But yeah.
Definitely. Especially with the decks that are actually being played. I think this top 8 cut is a much better representation of the decks out there. It's not all just Data Life. Slime plays a similar standby game plan.
Yep.
Yeah, the Sunshine we've seen also in EU. It still functions really well in this meta, but it just didn't make the cut into top 8 for EU. In NA, you have more players, so maybe even more players playing the same set, and that top 8 is also going to be very amazing. I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah, for sure. And just to remind you guys, the NA top 8 is going to be starting in just a few hours. So if you guys want to watch, even though EU tournament is over, BRO is not over yet. NA is top 8 is still last to come, starting just a few hours time. So be sure to check up on all the socials, check back on Twitch. It's going to be starting very soon. But until then, I think for now, back to the three of us, it's just going to be it here. We are wrapping up EU. So yeah, once again, thank you to all the players, all the staff, Bushiroad for the event. It's been such a great, fun to both watch and commentate these games. And I just can't wait until Springfest coming up later this year, where we can back on the tournament circuit. Hopefully I'll see my fellow casters there. I'll see everyone watching at home, out there playing it out. Once again, reminder just to tweet out your best moments with hashtag BRO2021. But I think that's going to be it from me. All I have left to say is Weiss Schwarz is a great game, and I hope to see as many people playing as possible. But,
exactly.
Can't agree more.
All right, so until then, I will hopefully see everyone very soon. Once again, you can see all of our names down here. You follow us all on social media. Check us out. Check out ENTCG. They do a lot of great stuff as well. But until next time, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. No,